need to get back to the house to grab a shower before then. This was a date, wasn't it? The first real date. They'd been knocking around together for 6 months, friends, but now he felt giddy as a teenager. He arrived at her house dead on time, his hair still wet, uncomfortable in a new shirt which had a starchy, stiff feel to it, faint creases down the front where it had been folded in the packet. He was always nervous around clothes. What did you wear to a party to celebrate the opening of an art exhibition, when the woman who haunted your dreams and distracted your days was one of the artists? When you hoped, that night, to take her to bed? She was nervous too. He could tell that as soon as she climbed into the car. She was dressed up in something slinky and black, looking so sophisticated that he couldn't believe he'd have a chance with her. Then she gave that quirky grin that always flipped his stomach, made him feel like he'd spent 3 hours in the Good Shepherd in a westerly gale. He squeezed her hand. He wanted to tell her how stunning she looked, but because he couldn't think how without seeming crass or patronising, they drove all the way to Bidista in silence. The gallery was called the Herring House. Once they had dried fish here. It was at the end of a low valley, right on the water on the west coast. Further along the beach there was a small stone pier where the fishing boats had pulled up to unload their catch. A couple of men still kept boats on the beach. Walk out of the door and there'd be the smell of seaweed and salt. Bella Sinclair said that when she'd first taken over the place, there was still a whiff of the herring in the walls. Bella was the other artist exhibiting. Perez knew her, as almost everyone in Shetland knew her. To chat to at parties, but mostly second-hand, through the stories that were passed around about her. She was a Shetlander, Bidista born and bred, wild in her youth, they said, but now rather unapproachable, intimidating, and rich. He felt flustered after the rush from the plane, and by the sense that this was his one chance with Fran. He was so clumsy with people's feelings. What if he got it wrong? When he held out his hand to shake Bella's, he saw that it was trembling. Perhaps, too, he'd picked up Fran's anxiety about how her paintings would be received. When they began to circulate among the guests, to look at the work displayed on the bare walls, he felt the tension building even more. He could hardly take in what was happening around him. He talked to Fran, nodded to acquaintances, but there was no real engagement. He felt the pressure build against his forehead. It was like waiting for a thunderstorm on a warm, heavy day. It was only when Roddy Sinclair was brought on to play for them that he could begin to relax for the first time, as if the rain had finally come. Roddy stood framed by light in the middle of the space. It was 9 in the evening, but still sunshine came through the windows, cut into the tall, sloping roof. It was reflected from the polished wooden floor and the whitewashed walls, and lit his face. He stood still for a moment, grinning, waiting until the guests started to look at him, absolutely sure he would get their attention. Conversation faltered, and the room grew quiet. He looked at his aunt, who gave him a smile which was at once indulgent and grateful. He lifted his fiddle, gripped it under his chin, and waited again. There was a moment of silence, and he began to play. They had known what to expect, and he didn't disappoint them. He played like a madman. It was what he was known for, the show. That and the music. Shetland fiddle music, which had somehow caught the popular imagination, was played on national radio, raved about by television chat show hosts. Impossible to believe. A Shetland boy in the tabloids for drinking champagne and dating teenage actresses. He'd hit the big time suddenly. A rock star had named him as his favourite performer, and then he was everywhere, in newspapers and on the television, and in glossy celebrity magazines. He hopped and jigged, and the respectable middle-aged people, the art critic from the south, the few great and good who'd driven north from Lerwick, set down their glasses and began to clap to the rhythm. He fell to his knees, lay back slowly so that he was flat on the floor, and continued playing without missing a beat, then sprang to his feet, and still the music continued.